Have you ever walked into a room and felt the energy shift? Not because someone shouted, but because someone said nothing at all. That's the power of silent dominance. No threats. No raised voices, just presence. Imagine standing eye to eye with a wild predator. It doesn't growl, it doesn't pounce, it watches. Silent, calculated. And in that terrifying stillness, your instincts scream louder than any roar ever could. Or picture a chess grandmaster. He doesn't fidget, doesn't boast. He stares at the board while his opponent sweats bullets, overwhelmed by what he can't see coming. That is silent power. The power of being unreadable. The power of commanding attention without saying a word. And in this video, we're going to uncover 7 Stoic-based strategies that will transform you into someone who isn't just respected, you're feared. Not out of cruelty, but out of control. Strategy. For 1, master your emotions. Let's begin with one of the hardest and most underestimated disciplines of true power, mastering your emotions. It sounds simple. Stay calm, don't react. Easy, right? But when someone digs at your pride, when they test your limits with subtle jabs or open disrespect, the instinct is to snap, to raise your voice, to defend your dignity, to fight back. That's what they want. Because the moment you react, they've won. Your reaction becomes their control. Your anger, their fuel. Your frustration, their leverage. In that moment, you've surrendered power. But imagine this. They throw insult after insult, and you just stand there. Still. Calm. Unshaken. You smile. You nod. You give them nothing to work with. That silence isn't weakness. It's lethal strength. It unnerves them. It makes them question everything. People fear what they can't predict. And someone who isn't emotionally reactive is terrifying because they're unreadable. They can't be manipulated. They can't be provoked. This is where Stoicism comes in. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." True power is emotional independence. It's staying centered when everything around you is trying to pull you off course. Let me tell you a story. There was a man I knew. Let's call him Thomas. He worked in a high-stress office where a colleague tried, almost daily, to provoke him. Sarcastic remarks in meetings, passive-aggressive emails, public criticism. It was a game of emotional sabotage. Most people would have exploded or crumbled. But not Thomas. He responded with nothing. A calm tone. A half smile. Zero emotional return. The provocateur grew more frustrated each day. Eventually, that colleague lost credibility because people began to see the contrast. Thomas's calmness became his shield. His silence became the thing they respected and feared. So ask yourself, what do you gain from reacting? What do you lose by staying calm? The truth is, calmness confuses your enemies. Emotional neutrality disarms them. It creates a psychological pressure they can't handle because they were expecting a fight. Instead, they're met with stillness. Silence. Power. Thomas's calmness didn't just protect his peace, it flipped the dynamic. The power shifted. His silence spoke louder than any rebuttal ever could. At first, like many of us, Thomas had the instinct to fight back. He wanted to defend himself, to clarify, to prove he was right. And who could blame him? When someone constantly pokes at your reputation or challenges your character, It feels like injustice not to respond. But Thomas soon realized something profound. Every time he reacted, he was dancing to someone else's tune. His emotional energy became their weapon. He wasn't defending himself, he was surrendering control. So, he made a choice. The next time his colleague launched one of those passive-aggressive digs, Thomas didn't flinch. He didn't look up, didn't argue. He simply carried on, calm, composed, untouchable. And just like that, the power play collapsed. The person who used to get under his skin was now the one squirming. Why? Because silence doesn't give them fuel. It leaves them grasping at air. No reaction means no leverage. And the most remarkable part? Over time, this person stopped trying to provoke him altogether. Why keep pushing if the buttons no longer work? So how do you develop this emotional mastery? It starts with awareness. Recognize what triggers you. What phrases, tones, or gestures make your blood boil? Dig deeper. Why do they affect you so much? Often, it ties back to unresolved insecurities or unhealed experiences. When you name your triggers, you strip them of their invisible power. Step 2. Practice in the moment. Use breath as your anchor. The next time tension rises, don't rush to react. Breathe. One deep breath gives your mind enough space to respond with intention rather than emotion. And finally, reframe your mindset. Emotional control is not suppression, it's redirection. You're not ignoring how you feel. You're choosing how and when to express it. That's real power. Power that doesn't explode, but expands. Marcus Aurelius knew this well. The Stoics believed that mastering the self was the ultimate form of dominance, not over others, but over your own reactions. And here's the truth. In a world that constantly shouts, staying calm is a form of rebellion. When others lose themselves in chaos, your stillness becomes your armor. When you master your emotions, you don't just protect your peace, you make yourself untouchable. And that's just the beginning. In the next part, we'll explore another silent weapon, one that builds an invisible fortress around your mind and your reputation. Ready for strategy number 2? Strategy number 2. Maintain an unshakable presence. Let's take it a step further. Mastering your emotions is the foundation. But how do you carry that calm into a room? How do you radiate silent strength that speaks volumes before you say a single word? That's the power of an unshakable presence. It's not loud. It doesn't need to be. True presence doesn't shout. It echoes. It lingers. It turns heads without even trying. When you enter a room with this kind of quiet confidence, people sense it immediately. They feel it in the way you move, in your posture, in your stillness. You're not trying to prove anything, yet you dominate the space. And here's the key. This kind of presence isn't about ego or arrogance. It's not puffing your chest or demanding attention. It's the opposite. It's self-certainty. When you know who you are and what you bring to the table, you no longer seek external validation. That's why it's intimidating. People are used to others trying too hard. But when someone doesn't need to try, that's when the room takes notice. Your presence becomes a silent message. I'm enough. I don't need to shout to be heard. And in a world that values noise, that silence becomes magnetic. So once you begin to master that quiet confidence, when you stop chasing respect and simply embody it, something powerful happens. The world starts to lean in. People begin to notice. They sense something different about you. Not because you demand attention, not because you dominate with noise, but because your energy quietly commands it. and you don't even have to say a word. This is where Stoic wisdom comes to life. Lao Tzu once said, "Silence is a source of great strength." Just take a moment and let that sink in. It's not always about what you say or do. Sometimes, it's the calm confidence in your presence that says the most. Silence, in this context, doesn't mean passivity. It means restraint, clarity, control. It shows that you're so grounded in who you are, so certain of your values, that you don't feel the need to constantly fill the room with words or gestures. Think about it. Who stands out more? The person loudly trying to prove something, or the one who says little but somehow makes everyone pause and pay attention? Let me share a real story. There's a man I once met. Let's call him Ethan. In social situations, he was never the loudest voice. He didn't crack jokes to seek approval, didn't try to dominate conversations. But when Ethan walked into a room, the energy shifted. He carried himself with a kind of quiet power. His back was always straight. His steps were measured. His tone, when he did speak, was calm, thoughtful, and never rushed. People around him would naturally lower their voices when he entered a conversation, not because he demanded it, but because his presence had weight. He never had to shout. His very existence radiated certainty, and that certainty was magnetic. Ethan understood something most people don't. Respect isn't something you force, it's something you attract. And that attraction comes from how you show up, not how loud you are. So how do you cultivate an unshakable presence like this? 1. Stand tall. Posture is everything. When you walk into a room with your shoulders back, chest open, and head held high, you signal confidence without speaking a word. Avoid slouching. Every inch of your body language tells a story. Make sure it aligns with strength. 2. Move with intention. Don't fidget, don't rush. Every movement should have purpose. When you move deliberately, whether it's picking up a cup or walking across the room, you show you're in control of your space. And that control is captivating. 3. Embrace silence. This is key. Learn to sit with silence comfortably. You don't always need to fill gaps with chatter. When you're confident, silence becomes your ally, not your enemy. It gives others space to feel your energy rather than just hear your voice. In the end, the strongest presence doesn't shout. It doesn't plead. It doesn't need to convince. It simply is. And people feel it. So next time you walk into a room, don't overthink your words. Focus on your posture, your breath, your calm. Let your stillness be the loudest thing in the room. We'll break down exactly how to develop this presence in the next section. But remember, presence isn't about being the loudest. It's about being the most grounded. Ready for strategy? 3. Strategy number 3, let your actions speak. Now that you've built an unshakable presence, it's time to reinforce it with something even more powerful, your actions. In today's world, words are everywhere. Promises fly around like confetti. Social media is flooded with people saying what they plan to do. But how many actually follow through? Here's the hard truth. Words are cheap. Anyone can say they're disciplined, that they're building a business, that they're working on themselves, but words without actions are just noise. That's why silent strength doesn't talk about what it will do. It does it. In the next section, we'll dive into how you can become the kind of person whose actions speak louder than any speech. But for now, remember this. Let people wonder what you're up to. Let them see the results. You don't need to announce every move. Just make moves that matter. Now that you've stepped into silent strength through presence, it's time to double down on what really counts. Not the words you speak, but the actions you take. Because in the end, people won't remember your promises. They'll remember your patterns. What truly defines you, your strength, your character, your values, isn't in what you say you'll do, but in what you actually do. Talk is easy, commitment is hard, and in a world overflowing with empty words and grand declarations, action is rare and powerful. If you want people to respect you, stop trying to convince them, show them, live your values. Let your discipline speak for you. Let your consistency do the talking. When you move in silence with relentless focus and unwavering integrity, your presence becomes undeniable. This is the core of Stoic wisdom. The Stoics didn't waste time with flowery words or public displays. They believed that virtue, real virtue, was proven through practice, not performance. What mattered wasn't what you claimed to be, it was what you showed up as, day after day, especially when no one was watching. Let me tell you a story. I knew a man, let's call him Jack. Jack had big dreams. He talked about them often. He'd tell anyone who'd listen about his plans, starting a business, writing a book, changing his life. His words were vivid, full of passion. But days turned into weeks and weeks into months. And Jack still hadn't moved. People stopped listening. His enthusiasm started sounding like noise. Why? Because without action, words lose meaning. They become background music. Then one day, Jack had a realization. People weren't doubting his dreams. They were doubting him. Because nothing had changed. So Jack made a decision. No more announcements, no more explaining, just execution. He started waking up earlier, working in silence, making progress, not for the sake of attention, but because he owed it to himself. And guess what? People noticed, not because he told them, but because the results began to show. The shift in his life was undeniable. His actions spoke so loudly, his old words didn't even matter anymore. So how can you let your actions speak louder than your words? 1. Focus on consistency. Real progress isn't built in bursts, it's built in rhythm. Don't chase intensity, chase sustainability. Even small steps, taken every day, will outpace grand efforts done once in a while. 2. Pursue excellence. Don't just get things done, get them done well. Don't settle for just enough. Aim for craftsmanship. When you take pride in what you do, people take notice. 3. Build resilience. Life will test you. You will fall. But every time you rise again, you grow. Each obstacle overcome becomes another brick in the foundation of your strength. Keep pushing, keep showing up, and soon, no one will doubt your endurance. Because here's the truth. Your words can be doubted, twisted, or forgotten. But your actions, they can't be denied. You don't need to broadcast every goal. Let your progress whisper louder than any promise. So stop talking. Start doing. And let the results become your reputation. Once you start letting your actions speak louder than your words, people won't care about what you promised. They'll respect what you proved. But to protect the value of your actions, you must also protect your peace. That's why our next silent power strategy is so crucial. Strategy. Number 4. Never overreact to insults. Let's talk about one of the most underrated yet powerful traits of emotional control, the ability to stay calm in the face of insults. We've all been there. Someone throws a cheap shot, makes a sarcastic remark, or tries to undermine us publicly. The instinctive response: defend yourself, correct the record, fire back with something equally sharp. It feels justified. It feels necessary. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Every time you overreact, you lose a little power. When you respond with anger, frustration, or visible hurt, you're giving your opponent exactly what they want, proof that their words hit a nerve. You're revealing your weak spots. You're giving them control. But when you respond with calm indifference, when you don't flinch, don't defend, don't even blink, you rob them of the reaction they're seeking. And that right there is power. Because indifference isn't weakness. It's emotional maturity. It's the silent message that says, your words are too small to shake someone as grounded as me. This is exactly what Stoic philosophy teaches. Epictetus, one of the most revered Stoic thinkers, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." To the Stoics, insults were nothing but noise. The opinions of others? Outside your control. What is in your control? Your response. The calmer you remain, the more you signal that their opinion is irrelevant to your sense of self. You stop playing their game. You stop giving them fuel. And ironically, that makes them feel powerless. Let me share a real story. There's a woman I know. Let's call her Linda. Linda worked in a high-pressure office where one colleague constantly targeted her. Sarcasm during meetings, undermining her ideas, spreading subtle gossip behind her back. At first, Linda reacted emotionally, sometimes defending herself, sometimes confronting the person. But the more she responded, the worse it got. The insults escalated. Her frustration became entertainment. Then one day, Linda made a shift. She stopped reacting. Next time that colleague made a sarcastic jab, Linda just looked at her, expression neutral, voice steady, and moved on with her point. No fire, no anger, just stillness. And the effect? Immediate. Her attacker lost momentum. The power dynamic flipped. Without a reaction to feed on, the provocations began to fade. Eventually, that colleague gave up, because it's no fun fighting someone who refuses to play. So how do you develop this level of emotional control? 1. Recognize the game. Most insults are just power plays. The goal is to get under your skin. Once you recognize the tactic, it becomes easier to stay composed. 2. Pause before responding. Give yourself space. A few seconds of silence is enough to diffuse the emotional spike and replace reaction with reason. 3. Train your indifference. Remind yourself, their words are not facts. Their opinions are not your reality. You don't need to correct every insult. You need to own your calm. In the end, your greatest revenge isn't a clever comeback. It's emotional peace. The kind of stillness that says, you don't have access to my energy. Let others throw stones. You stay solid. That's what real strength looks like. So, when Linda stopped reacting, she reclaimed control. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was strength. And that shift in energy made all the difference. Every insult she used to respond to had been a gateway, giving her colleague permission to influence her emotions. But when Linda closed that gateway with calm indifference, the insults lost their power. The dynamic changed, and suddenly, the person who once felt dominant began to second-guess themselves. So, how do you avoid overreacting to insults? It starts with self-awareness. The next time someone throws a jab your way, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Often the insult is just bait. The goal is to trigger you. But once you recognize it for what it is, you can rise above it. Second, control your emotional response. The moment you allow someone else to dictate your mood, you've given them control. But when you stay grounded, even when provoked, you maintain your power. And finally, embrace indifference. Not every insult deserves a response. In fact, sometimes silence is more powerful than any comeback. It's the ultimate signal that someone else's opinion has no hold over you. At the end of the day, your greatest strength lies in your ability to remain unaffected. Let others talk. Let them try. You stay still. Stay centered, and watch how quickly they lose their grip on you. And in the next section, we'll dive even deeper into the art of control, not just of emotion, but of perception. Strategy number 5. Control what they know about you. Now let's shift gears and talk about one of the most overlooked yet powerful tools in your arsenal. Controlling the information others have about you. We live in a hyper-observant world. People watch. They analyze. They collect data, intentionally or not. Your habits, your opinions, your weaknesses, your dreams, all of it becomes part of a puzzle they're trying to solve. And the more predictable you are, the easier that puzzle becomes to complete. If someone knows your insecurities, your triggers, or your deepest goals, they can use that information. Not always maliciously, but even unintentional manipulation can push you off balance. That's why one of the smartest moves you can make is to protect your privacy. Not in a paranoid way, but in a strategic one. You don't have to share everything. You don't need to explain every plan, every fear, or every frustration. In fact, holding back can become your silent advantage. The more unpredictable you are, the harder it becomes for others to control you. Here's the truth. People can't use what they don't know. Stoic wisdom supports this. Sun Tzu once said, "Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak." It's not about deception. It's about strategic concealment. When you keep certain things to yourself, you retain control over your narrative. You decide what others get to see. And when others can't read you like a book, they can't write your ending. Let me paint a picture. Imagine you're playing poker. Do you lay all your cards on the table before the game starts? Of course not. You protect your hand. You reveal just enough to stay in the game, but never enough to be predictable. That's how you should treat your personal life. So how do you control what others know about you? 1. Be intentional with what you share. You don't have to lie, but you don't have to reveal everything either. Choose what serves you and what doesn't. 2. Maintain emotional boundaries. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Be cautious with who you vent to, who you trust, and what you reveal in moments of vulnerability. 3. Use mystery as strength. When people can't predict you, they can't control you. Let them wonder. Let your silence create space for power. In a world that constantly demands transparency, strategic privacy becomes a power move. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting the only person who needs to stay in control. You. In a world obsessed with exposure, protecting your privacy is your silent shield. And when you begin to control what others know about you, you stop being an easy target. You become a mystery. And that mystery, it's power. Because the less people know, the harder it is for them to strike. When you're always open, when you share every detail of your thoughts, plans, and weaknesses, you unknowingly give others a roadmap, one they can use to undermine or manipulate you. But when you hold back, just enough to stay unpredictable, you become a much harder person to read, and even harder to defeat. Let me tell you a story. There's a guy I know. Let's call him Chris. Chris was a genuinely friendly and open person. He believed that transparency built trust, so he shared openly at work about his goals, his challenges, and even personal issues. He thought it made him relatable, but over time, he noticed something odd. His colleagues began using his own words against him. If he admitted struggling with a project, it wasn't seen as honesty. It became a reason to question his competence. If he shared a personal hardship, it was subtly brought up in ways that made him feel exposed, even diminished. What he thought would bring connection had given others leverage. And so, Chris made a change. He stopped oversharing. He still communicated, but now it was with intention. He no longer revealed personal insecurities or internal challenges. He focused on the work, kept things professional, and let people guess the rest. And guess what happened? The respect came back. The tone shifted. His colleagues, unsure of what he was thinking or feeling, stopped pushing boundaries. Because unpredictability makes people cautious, and caution gives you control. So how do you protect your inner world and control what others know about you? 1. Be mindful of what you share. Just because someone asks doesn't mean they need to know. Save your deepest thoughts, insecurities, and fears for people who've earned your trust, not casual conversations. 2. Embrace mystery. Let people wonder. The more unpredictable you are, the harder it is to be manipulated. Mystery isn't being secretive, it's being smart. 3. Use your strength strategically. You don't need to flex all the time. Sometimes showing strength is powerful. Other times, appearing neutral or even vulnerable can keep you in control. Choose wisely. This doesn't mean you lie. It means you own your narrative. Because at the end of the day, the less others know about you, the more control you have over your outcomes. When people can't predict you, they can't preempt you. And that unpredictability becomes your power. True strength lies in mystery. So protect your emotional space, keep some things sacred, and watch how quickly manipulation loses its grip. When you control what others know about you, you gain power. But when you keep your plans to yourself and let your results speak, you gain something even greater: momentum. And in a world full of noise, that kind of quiet progress is unstoppable. Strategy, Sucker 6. Make power moves in silence. Let's talk about one of the most strategic and underrated habits of powerful people: moving in silence. In today's world, we're encouraged to announce everything: our next big project, our personal goals, even the daily wins. It feels good to talk about what we're working on. We crave encouragement, validation, maybe even admiration. But here's the truth. Every time you announce your next move, you open the door for interference. People may doubt you. They may criticize you. They may distract you. And sometimes, without even meaning to, their opinions can create hesitation, confusion, or even fear. Their words become mental clutter. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus said, "Do not explain your philosophy. Embody it." In other words, don't talk about what you believe in. Live it. Show it. Prove it through action. Your results are your real voice. Let me tell you a story. There's a woman I know. Let's call her Emma. Emma was a big thinker, ambitious, passionate. She loved setting goals, and even more, she loved sharing them. Whether it was a new business idea or a personal transformation plan, she would talk about it with friends, coworkers, even online. At first, the excitement was motivating. But over time, she noticed a pattern. The more she talked, the more resistance she faced. People doubted her. questioned her plans, gave unsolicited advice. Some were skeptical, others subtly competitive. She began second-guessing herself, not because she lost belief, but because she was overwhelmed by other people's noise. So, she made a quiet shift. Emma stopped broadcasting. She focused. She put her head down, worked in silence, and kept her plans to herself. No more announcements. Just quiet, steady action. And when the results came in, they were undeniable. She reached milestones no one saw coming. She didn't need to prove anything anymore. Her success did all the talking. So how do you make power moves in silence? 1. Keep your plans private. The fewer people who know your next step, the less interference you face. Hold your vision close. Let results, not promises, do the speaking. 2. Stay focused. Talking about goals can trick your brain into feeling like you've already accomplished something. Save the energy for execution. Don't say it, do it. 3. Let your actions be the announcement. Silence isn't emptiness. It's concentration. It's clarity. And when you emerge with results, those results speak louder than 1,000 promises. In a world where everyone's broadcasting their next move, there's something undeniably powerful about working quietly, then letting your results drop like thunder. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need applause. You need progress. And that's what silent power is all about. When you move in silence and let your results speak, you don't just succeed, you shift perception. You show your strength without ever needing to justify it. And now, let's talk about the next silent power strategy, the most personal and liberating one of all. Strategy 7. Be unapologetically yourself. In a world where so many people shapeshift just to belong, where they edit themselves, silence their opinions, and play it safe to win approval, there's something radical about being fully, authentically yourself. No filters, no pretending. Just raw, honest presence. Because here's the truth. The moment you stop asking for permission to exist as you are, you become untouchable. Most people live their lives trying to blend in. They shift their behavior to match their environment, adapt their opinions to avoid conflict, and minimize their uniqueness to stay liked. But blending in might keep you safe. It will never make you powerful. Real power begins when you stop asking, "Will they approve?" and start saying, "This is who I am." And yes, it takes courage. Being unapologetically yourself means not everyone will like you. Some will misunderstand you. Others might walk away. But here's the twist. Those who matter will stay. And more importantly, you'll stay true to yourself. Let me tell you a story. There's a man I know, let's call him Jake. Jake was a people pleaser. In every room he walked into, he tried to be who others wanted him to be. He laughed at jokes he didn't find funny. He downplayed his own accomplishments. He adjusted his personality to avoid conflict and be accepted. But over time, Jake felt empty, drained, disconnected, like he was living someone else's life. Until one day, something clicked. He asked himself, "Why am I shrinking myself to fit places I don't belong?" From that moment on, Jake made a choice. He stopped pretending. He stopped muting his voice. He stopped hiding parts of himself just to make others comfortable. And something amazing happened. The right people started gravitating toward him. The wrong ones faded away. And Jake, he felt stronger, freer, and more himself than ever before. So how can you be unapologetically yourself? 1. Own your truth. Stop editing who you are to please others. Speak honestly, Act with integrity. Let your values guide your choices, not public opinion. 2. Release the need for approval. You don't need to be liked by everyone to be valuable. Your worth isn't determined by applause. Stand firm in your truth, even if it makes others uncomfortable. 3. Live with alignment. When your actions reflect your beliefs and your words match your heart, you radiate confidence. That kind of authenticity can't be faked, and it's magnetic. This is where Stoic wisdom shines. The Stoics taught that true freedom comes not from fitting in, but from living in accordance with your own nature. They believe that approval is a trap, and peace is only possible when you stop letting others define your worth. So be bold, be raw, be you, without apology. Because the moment you stop asking the world for permission to be yourself, you reclaim your power. When Jake stopped seeking approval and started owning his truth, he didn't just gain confidence, he gained respect. And now, as we close this journey of silent power, here's the final reminder. Being fully, boldly yourself is your greatest strength. Because nothing is more powerful than authenticity. The moment Jake stopped hiding his beliefs, something amazing happened. People started respecting him more, not less. They admired his clarity, his confidence, his quiet refusal to bend to expectations. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't chasing applause. He was simply standing tall in his own truth. And the best part, Jake no longer needed to wear a mask to feel accepted. He wasn't exhausted from pretending. He wasn't walking on eggshells trying to please everyone. He was just being Jake, and that was enough. So how do you become unapologetically yourself? Start with this. Stop looking for validation. You don't need anyone's approval to exist as you are. Your value isn't up for a vote. When you stop asking the world, "Am I enough?" and start telling the world, "This is who I am," everything changes. Then embrace your uniqueness. What makes you different? That's not your weakness, that's your edge. The things others may find odd or unconventional, those are often the very things that make you powerful, memorable, and magnetic. Stop hiding them. Let them shine. And finally, live by your own standards. Not your family's, not your friends', not social media's. Yours. Because when your actions are aligned with your own values, not the expectations of others, you unlock a kind of freedom that can't be shaken. You stop living for the crowd, and you start living for something deeper, your truth. This is where the deepest Stoic wisdom lives. The Stoics believe that self-respect and peace come not from trying to please others, but from acting in alignment with your inner values, regardless of praise or criticism. They taught that when you live authentically, you become immune to external noise. At the end of the day, here's what matters. When you stop trying to fit in, you stop shrinking. When you stop shrinking, you expand into your full power. And when you step fully into who you are, you become untouchable. Not because you're trying to be above anyone, but because you've stopped trying to be anything other than yourself. Own your voice, live your truth. And let your presence be your quiet revolution. Thank you for watching. If this video resonated with you, drop a comment, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more wisdom on living with power, purpose, and peace. Until next time, stay grounded, stay true, and always move in silent strength.